Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on the Weekend Show, and today's episode is brought to you by Worthy. Now, on the 26th of July 2024, the Olympics will kick off in Paris, France. Now, people around the world will tune in to watch their countrymen and women compete for renowned trophies as they shatter world records for the first time in Olympic history. Gender parity will be achieved at the Games with an equal number of events and medals up for grabs by both men and women. Incidentally, Nigeria too has achieved parity at this year's Games with over 60% of its 87-person delegation being female. At Worthy, what they do is that they try to empower women with programs such as this where we talk about Empower Her Game, and that's what we will be discussing on the lifestyle today about the Olympics. Now, talking about the Olympics, I remember certain moments that have brought Nigerians together, one of which was in 1996 where Nigeria won the football gold medal. I also remember the likes of Mary Onyali, and we've also had some brilliant women who have done amazing, especially at the Olympics. And so I kind of have a lot more faith in our female athletes when it comes to the Olympics. Even our female football team will be there. And so this is something which I'm very excited about. And we have some friends in the studio with us and also virtually for this. And so one of our guests today is Rhoda Robinson. She's a co-founder and executive director at Hasey. She is an accomplished international development professional with more than 15 years of expertise and a consistent track record of successfully designing and executing high-impact interventions in the fields of gender equality, financial inclusion for women, sexual and reproductive health rights, family planning, and digital innovation in health and social development. Rhoda holds an MBA and a master's degree in gender and development, specializing in gender-based violence and women economic inclusion. She has advanced training in program management, policy, public policy, and gender mainstreaming. She is also a fellow of the Ashir Inamori Leadership Academy at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Washington, D.C., and also a global change leader with experience leading multi-year funded programs across the nation. Good morning, Rhoda. It's a pleasure having you on the Weekend Show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So I'm very excited because it's 6 days to the Olympics, and so far Nigeria has about 27 medals. However, what's more exciting for me is to see how great our female athletes are doing. We've seen it in track and field, we've seen it in weightlifting, we've seen it in football. And how does this make you feel? Let's talk about this.
I feel very happy because now we can clearly see beyond all reasonable that's what you can achieve when you invest in women's development. It's plain to say now we have more opportunities to win, we have more opportunities to be represented, and we have more opportunities to bring back medals to Nigeria. And this is what you get when you consistently invest in the other half of your population and understanding that when you do this, you're not only empowering women, but you're empowering the economy as well.
You talk about how investment can play a role. When it comes to empowering her game and women, what type of investments do you think are required to ensure that we even increase the numbers and ensure it is sustainable?
I think when you're looking at investments in women, we need to understand why it's important in the first place and why do we need to invest in women? Why do we need to invest in her economic empowerment? Investing in women's economic empowerment gives her the ability to make decisions, to be an active part of society and contribute to national development. Not only this, it empowers her to be able to have her own agency and contribute to decisions that affect her as a person. And when you're looking at investment in this case, you're looking at the opportunity to grow that part of society. Women make up more than half, almost more than half of our current population. Yet we have very limited investment when it comes to their representation in family decision, their representation in paid work, their representation in digital economy as well. So we need to understand how all these gaps interplay and how and why it is important that women need to play an active role in this area. So it not just covers sports, it covers daily life, it covers healthcare, it covers education, it covers markets, it covers job opportunities. It covers every aspect of society where women need to be represented.
You know, talking about women representation, and I have Aisha in the studio who will come to very soon. We've seen the traction women have gained in sports, especially in basketball this year. If you see the WNBA with a lot of buzz around Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and even the veterans in that space, we've seen how more people are watching female basketball. We've also seen how, because of the likes of Azizat Oshoala, we've seen more Nigerians now interested in football. Like I was saying earlier, I watched Marion Yali, who was a police officer, I think also a lawyer, and she was on the same boat. Those are the things that give me joy. And one thing this does is that it unites the country. When it comes to sports, we saw the AFCON tournament. When it comes to the Olympics, we're all one, and that's really amazing. But there are a couple of barriers which widens the gap between male and female when it comes to this. And one of this also is maternal reproductive health and high risk pregnancies for women. How can we ensure that while we try to empower women, we are bridging that gap to ensure that the women, first of all, survive and are healthy enough to be able to compete in this space?
I'm glad we remember Marion Yali during those days where you would sit in front of the TV and you were chanting her name and
Yes.
ensuring, but doing your own parts where you were to encourage her. And I think this is one of the things that we need as a society, as a community. We need to push back that value that women have in society, the role that they play in society. Now, if we look at women's health care, if you look at healthcare generally, we can see that we don't have a lot of investment when it comes to healthcare. Nigeria has if you look at our national budget, it is very limited when it comes to developing our healthcare system. We've been doing a lot, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. We have a maternal mortality rate of over 500 to 100,000 live births. This is not good. We have one of the highest adolescents and teenage pregnancy rates in Africa. This is not good. And this can be solved if we have adequate investment in women's health. Now, if we're looking beyond women's health, we're looking at our participation in economy as well. We need to start talking about ensuring that we block the gaps that exist when you're looking at women's the gender pay gap, when we're looking at digital gap, gender digital gap as well. We need to be able to ensure that we block all this because when women are empowered, when they have access to economic resources, equal access to economic resources, you'll find that it is easier for her to contribute and invest in her own healthcare and make active, positive decisions regarding her healthcare and that of her family. And going back to sports and healthcare in sports, it's you don't need to be a soothsayer to understand the fact that women's bodies operate differently. Now, when you have women who are in sports, and of course they have sexual and reproductive health needs and care that they need to take care of. But when you see a lot of women, and we had these cases, and I think in a recent our goalkeeper and Super Falcons, I think, who was pregnant and played while she was pregnant. And after that, she had to quit because the pressure was a lot. It's very difficult for women to balance those two when you don't have that support system in place. When even the structures, the infrastructure that you have in society does not support women actively participating and managing both sides of their lives, both the social life and their careers in our society. So these are areas that we need to generate more discussions on, implement more effective strategy on, and invest funding into ensuring that women's development, whether it's in sports, whether it's in education, whether it's in sitting in offices and making critical decisions that affect the lives of everybody around them. We need to ensure that we are able to invest and push those discussions to the forefront.
Thank you, Rhoda. I like the fact that you mentioned the case of the ex-Falcons goalkeeper, Anchi Jene, who in 2021 was the first female athlete from Nigeria who was competing pregnant. And like you have said, as a result of childbirth, she had to quit. And you can imagine how much more she would have been able to contribute to the sports quota. In basketball, you have the likes of LeBron James, who is turning 40, and he can still play. So there's already the disparity which exist. But a major problem which we'll always talk about is funding, and most times we rely on and look at governments. How can the private sector contribute to empowering women in different areas, especially sports?
One thing that the private sector needs to do is to push their resources towards this area. Now, a lot of private sector companies and institutions are now turning into the understanding of profit is not just about money, it's about people, it's about the profit, and it's about the environment as well. So a lot of them are looking into sustainable development. A lot of them are investing in sustainable. In the work I do at Hasty, we work with a lot of private organizations who are invested in this kind of work, who understand the importance of gender equality, who understand the importance of gender equity, who understand the importance of ensuring that women have access to resources and pushing that resources, allocating funding, allocating profits that they are making as private organizations towards research, towards social causes, towards developing solutions and institutions that cater to the unique needs of females in our society. And this is something that we need to carry on as well. And when you look at just the private sector cannot do it alone because there are infrastructure, there are policies that need to be changed as well to make these things easier. Right now, we're looking at taxes on female products going higher. We're looking at the cost of living for everyone going higher. But how does this affect women's ability to actually generate income? How does this affect women's ability to get jobs that they are well paid for, decent jobs that they are well paid for? When private organizations start understanding the importance of gender equity and gender equality and start practicing it in all they do, not just as a means of giving back to society, but as a core business principle, we'll find out that it is much easier for women to get into those spaces. It is much easier for women to speak out about things they're passionate about. It is easier for women to contribute to economy because they are getting paid for what they do at the same rate as their gender counterparts.
Rhoda, thank you so much for your contribution, and I must commend the likes of Worthy for what they are doing, just even enabling us to have this conversation. We'll be having more conversations with you as time goes on, and well done for all the work you do in this space.
Thank you so much.
All right, joining us, we have Africa's biggest sports blogger, Dr. Kelechi Anyikude, who is a sports blogger. He has a PhD in environmental engineering. He's a digital and growth marketing expert, also a content creator. Good morning, Dr. Kelechi.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You know, when people finally get to this doctor title, it's very important that we say doctor. Everyone knows you as Kelechi AFC, but I'll continue to call you doctor. Congratulations on that. I think that's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Now, Kelechi, when we talk about sports generally, you are one of Nigeria's biggest ambassadors when it comes to promoting sports and Nigeria in that space. Now, we have 62 women, female athletes from Nigeria participating in the Olympics. How important is this, and how much of storytelling do we need to do around this?
I mean, it's really important. Like you said, we have more women participating in the Olympics than the men. For me, I mean, it shows that they persevered. They've gone for all the competitions, all of the pre-qualifying competitions, and they've done really well. But we need to tell their stories. Like the previous guest just said, for me, it's also harder for the women to also make it to this level due to, you can name it, lack of funding or people prioritizing the men. And I mean, I can give you an instance when the Nigerian women's basketball team, were denied a tournament due to lack of funding. So it looks like sometimes, in fact, actually the football, we were supposed to have the WAFCON, the women's AFCON. It's not been held. But if it was the men, it would have been held. So we see all these disparities, happening. But I am happy, and to be honest, in this Olympics that we're going for, our medal hopes actually rest on the women. So, and we are hoping that they will go there and conquer. So, yes, I'm happy to see them, grow, progress, and continue to make impact. And we are here also to also help tell their stories.
What's your expectation of our female football team in this Olympics, seeing as the men did make the cut?
I'm quite hopeful. You know, when they went for the World Cup in Australia last year, nobody was expecting anything, and they really played well and got to the quarterfinals. Only lost on penalties to England. So we are really really hopeful. They played Canada the other day, lost in the friendly 1-0. It's still a tune-up game, and they're trying to get into their rhythm. Everybody's coming from different clubs and everything, but the buzz from the camp and the way they are all close together, I believe that they will go far. We've always set the pace when it comes to the Olympics, the African team in the Olympics. So I believe that they will go far.
Okay, we now have a lot of Nigerians relocating, which we now call jackpot, to different countries, and in most cases it's because for greener pastures, and some of them want enabling environments. So I remember in the last Olympics, there were several Nigerians competing for different countries, and you could tell these are Nigerian names, but they weren't competing for Nigeria. What can we do to bring back that talent into the Nigerian sports industry to ensure we have the best representation? And this, you even find more of these numbers when it comes to our female athletes.
Well, it's a mixture of both, because the Nigerian names you're seeing are actually probably Nigerian, maybe say English-born Nigerians or American-born Nigerians, And personally, for me, it's my personal opinion, they owe it to the country where they were born first to participate there before they can come to Nigeria. That's my own personal opinion. I also tell the footballers the same thing. So for Bukayo Saka, I cannot give, for instance, Bukayo Saka grief because he's playing for England. No, he was born here, he was schooled here, the whole system brought him up. We can't just wait and come and wait for them to, package them where they will come and pick. No, for me, it doesn't work like that. Develop your own as well. If they decide to play for us, then that's fantastic. That's the way I see it. But again, back in the day when, say, for instance, Gloria Lozier, I think she later ran for Spain after winning silver medal for us in the Olympics. She later ran for Spain. So because of like the previous guest said, the disparity in payments and no money, lack of money, some of them just, jump out to another country. I think there's another girl running for Bahrain, I think, at the moment. So yes, because of lack of funding, there's no environment for them to practice. There are so many things that is wrong with the sports industry in Nigeria. They seem to go get greener pastures elsewhere. But most of the Nigerian names you're seeing, personally, like for instance in the basketball team, they're mostly Nigerian Americans. So they were born there and they've come to play for us, and we're happy with that. But their first port of call, to be honest, if you ask me, is to play for the country where they were born. And if there's no opportunity and there's an opportunity for you to play for Nigeria, fantastic.
And this is why the conversation about empowering women is important. Final question before I let you go. As a man, how can we support and empower more women to be actively involved in sports and different sectors and industries? What can we do to provide that enabling environment and provide support?
You have to be present. You have to come watch them, support them too. If you're a man and you're in positions to enact policies and laws that support women and support women's sports, help us do it. Tell their stories, create that enabling environment for them. Like I said, our current Olympics now, I hope, rest on Brume and Tobi Amusan, to be honest.
Yes.
So they are the ones, that's the honest truth. We are supporting everybody. Everybody, we are supporting. The medal can come from anywhere, mixed relay, anything can come from anywhere. But these two, you can, Favor Philly there, I have to put her there as well. You see, three, these girls have been doing it, and you can see, you are following their stories, they are world class. So more support, more enabling environment, and you see them coming up. We have the Nuga Games, we have the Nigeria Games that we do every year. We can pump money in, the previous guest said, private sector involvement, and get our athletes up to the standard so that they can compete with other athletes in the world.
Thank you very much, Kelechi. And I do agree with you. I'm actually rooting for the women. I have a lot of faith in them. I have a couple of names that I'm already very sure they are coming back with medals. For the
Of
men,
course.
maybe some in boxing, but and
Yeah,
hopefully
and wrestling
basketball.
as well. Blessing Burududu. In
Exactly.
Tokyo last year, she
Yes.
took silver or bronze. It's a one silver or bronze. I can't remember, but if you look at the history of our Olympics, the Choma Junwas, you
Yes.
see the Falilia Togukoya, mostly women. I mean, the men football we won. I can't remember any other one. Sorry, I drop of
Exactly.
my but you just see mostly
But
women.
when you
So
think about it, it's the
support
women.
them.
And so
Support them mostly.
we must support them. For people who know or don't know Kelechi, you can check him out on social media, Kelechi FC. And I'm sure you'll be covering the Olympics. And so we'll be seeing your highlights and possibly having more conversations with you as time goes on. Thank you very much, Dr. Kelechi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming back into the studio, we have someone who I respect so much, and I love her passion and drive for getting results. Aisha Shuaibu, who is a superwoman, president and founder of SWA Sports. You've done amazing work over the years, and I'm a bit biased because I've seen your work. So first of all, I want to start by saying well done before I say good morning and welcome back on the Weekend Show.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, as always.
As always, always good having you here. Your thoughts, women in this Olympics. We're talking about Empower Her Game, and Worthy has been having this conversation in media and entrepreneurship. And so, with 6 days to go, Nigeria in the Olympics, 62 women, a higher percentage than men. How does this make you feel?
I feel so proud and empowered. It's so beautiful to see, especially when you look around the world and there's still conversations that are being had about not enough support for women's sports, either from the viewership perspective or from the payments and finances perspective, or even from just allowing them to compete. We saw just yesterday that the French government announced that women wearing hijab won't be able to participate in Olympics, and that was just very disappointing to see as both a sports fan and a Muslim woman. So just seeing how women are still marginalized around the world when it comes to competing at the Olympics or at any international level, and then seeing where we are in Nigeria with so much female participation is very encouraging. And I think that it also tells us that now is the time to amplify our support for our women, and of course to spotlight the amount of support that they need for subsequent competitions.
I mean, it's quite disappointing that these disparities do exist, and it comes this close to the Olympics saying, oh, Muslim women shouldn't be allowed to wear their hijab. I remember when most of the countries were displaying their Olympics uniforms, and there was a common complaint that you could tell that most of these outfits were designed by men for women. And so this now shows there's a gap. We even need more women when it comes to clothing women for sports and the participation. How do you think that women's voices can be amplified just like yours? I mean, you know the challenges you've been through and what you're going through to push for sports globally and in Africa.
I think you can look at it at from different directions. So first of all, as an entrepreneur myself, now as a sports entrepreneur, you see nothing but gaps because you're working in this space, right? So you see the different channels where we can promote women's sports, promote women's support, and also see channels of investment. Just like you said, there's gaps with merchandising,
Yes.
but there's similar gaps with storytelling, with medicine, sports medicine, with infrastructure. We don't think about women's training journeys and women's diet and things like this. And these are some of the conversations that need to be had. And then you can now look at it from the perspective of a sports fan, as somebody that just loves sports and watches frequently or supports frequently. How can we tell their story? How can we amplify their stories and get that support? So Kelechi was just saying from a storyteller's perspective how you show up, you tell their stories, and he has the platform to do that. So for females that are bloggers as well or that are influencers, we have an opportunity to amplify and to raise their voices and to say their names in rooms where their names aren't being said or their interests aren't really being considered. And it has to be a collaborative effort. And I love what the first guest said as well about how we can't do it alone. So it definitely takes collaboration, especially when you're working from the private sector.
One of the things which impresses me with your work, amongst the many others, is that you go from the bottom to the top. You look at the roots, the grassroots, and all. In Nigeria, when we think about sports, we think about it from the level of NFF, from the Olympics Committee, from the Athletics Federation, but your approach accommodates the states. Why do you also take this route?
Well, for us, it was a priority that in identifying the gaps in sports development in Nigeria, we look at it holistically, right? And I'm a firm believer in anything that needs to be done well. I mean, anything worth doing should be done well, right? You cannot build on a weak foundation. And anything that you're trying to build, especially where there's opportunity, start at the ground, start from the grassroots, start from the bottom, so that you're able to create strong foundations that support future growth and investment. For sports in particular, we have a country that is youth populous. We have over 70% of our population under the age of 30, and it only makes sense that you work from the ground up to really understand the industry, the opportunities there, and the ways that youth can play a role, or at least sports can play a role in youth development, youth empowerment. At the state level, one of the things that our agency is trying to achieve is harnessing the power of sports to transform the lives of youth. This can look like a lot of things. It can look like programs. It can also look like investment in existing infrastructure. I mean, we have, I think it's 60-something stadiums in Nigeria, several sports facilities, most of them dilapidated. You don't expect youth to be able to reach their fullest capacity when it comes to sports if they don't have infrastructure. So it's one of the biggest gaps that we have here. And investing in those structures at the state level is extremely important, and we require the collaboration of state governments to do that. So when you look at the overall ecosystem of sports development, I mean, everything, it's an engine, and everything, so one thing needs the next thing to work and to operate. So it only makes sense to work from the ground up in order to create a sustainable future.
As a woman, an entrepreneur, and a Muslim woman, what has been the biggest challenges you've faced when it comes to what you're doing and empowering women in the space?
I think representation plays a huge role because there just aren't enough of us, and I mean as women completely. I have been lucky to travel around the African continent and meet so many people that are working in this space. And there's a lot of African women, but at the executive level, there's just not enough of us. And you don't expect favorable policies to be developed, any sort of rules at the top level that are impacting and influencing women from the bottom up to be made if there's no female representation at that level, right? So I think we just need more of us to create opportunities for the rest of us to climb higher on the ladder, even at the administrative level, from the officials at some of these leagues, and even in the teams and all of that. We need more female representation because nobody knows our issues more than us, right? We are the only ones that can come through for us, and we are the only ones that can voice out our concerns because nobody knows what we deal with more than us. So representation is definitely one of the gaps that I've noticed, but also collaboration. Collaboration is huge. This is probably one of my biggest priority areas now as a sports entrepreneur. Partnerships and collaborations goes such a long way because we go further when we go together. It's a lot harder a journey when you go alone. A lot of our problems in Africa are similar across the board. And by collaborating with one another, regardless of the country, whether you're in Nigeria or in Senegal or in Ivory Coast or wherever you are, you would see that the problems are similar, but so are the opportunities. And in coming together to address some of those problems, you are able to conquer them much stronger, much more strategically when you partner with like minds to tap into opportunities, solve problems, create innovative solutions, and of course, a sustainable future.
If there's something I've picked from Rhoda, Kelechi, and yourself today is representation, collaboration, and inclusion. And so when we have this, sustainability becomes a problem. Most times women get married and then they can't continue in that space or they start having children. What do you think we can all do collectively to ensure sustainability when it comes to empowering women, empower her game? Because this now goes even beyond sports. It's in every sector. How can we
This is
ensure
a really
sustainability?
important question. I asked an executive recently, actually, the president of the NBA Africa. Her name is Claire Akamanze. She's Rwandan. And we attended a women's empowerment initiative event under the Basketball Africa League. And this question was asked about balance, right? Work-life balance. And she gave such a powerful story about being in the corporate space, being a new mom, and the difficulty of balancing all. And how the balance isn't exactly, there's no cheat code, right, in the balance, but you have to be determined to make sure that you show up for the most important things in your life, you being the most important thing, because you can't pour out of an empty cup. And I think more women need to voice out, first of all, the difficulties of this supposed balancing act, balancing game, having it all, and not really knowing your left from your right when you're at the peak of managing a household as well as a career. But I personally feel like there is absolutely nothing that women cannot achieve. I mean, you have seen so many great women in history just be able to do it and to conquer it. Some of the women that I'm personally inspired by, I mean, Michelle Obama, so many now that I can't even think about. But historically, there's just been so many great women that have been able to seemingly succeed at the balancing act. There's definitely no cheat code. I think we just need to be a little bit more patient with ourselves. But this is where, as well, delegation and trust in a capable team, and then the partnership elements, the collaboration elements comes into play, because as human beings, we are not meant to do life alone.
Yeah.
And I think people need to be more real about this fact. Don't think that there's any single-handed success story. I mean, people say that all the time, oh, they've single-handedly achieved this and that. I personally don't really believe in that. I believe in the power of delegation and collaboration and partnerships, and having capable individuals around you that help you to balance all the things that you have going on. But over time, I think, and especially now, we will see more women that are managing mom life, wife life, career life, talk more about it, show up at their jobs with their newborns. And I think it will be inspiring, and it will create more opportunity for women to see that it is indeed possible to balance, and the world doesn't end just because you have obligations and day-to-day responsibilities. I would argue that men have just as much responsibilities, maybe not as obvious. Yeah. But for women, of course, it's definitely much more challenging. And I think that over time, especially now where people are being a lot more aware about the power of empowerment and just voicing out the need to tell your story, we will see more of those stories.
Actually, I've got nothing to add to that. You literally dropped the mic, and that's an amazing place to leave it. Thank you so much for what you do, what you're constantly doing, and how you've also supported Sports on the Weekend show over time, over the years. Really proud of you and your work. And today's lifestyle segment was brought to you by Worthy. We're running for the next 3 weeks a series called Empower Her Game, where we'll be looking at how we can empower women, especially in sports, but in other sectors. A key point which has come out of this is beyond participating in sports as an athlete, there's the merchandising, there's the logistics part, there's the healthcare part. And so there are different roles we can play, both as men and women, but the key is we need to empower her game. That's how much we can take on today's lifestyle segment. We'll take a quick break. When we return, more on The Weekend Show.